Guess what day it is? Barbecue day. Just a casual Sunday, but... Oh yeah. Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. I'm literally on the 7th out of my 12-day streak of working week. So please leave some encouraging comments below. But anyway, as you all know, I recently launched my £10 application service. And I've reviewed like personal statements, job applications, and master's projects, all for the same price at £10. I literally can't find it in me to charge anyone anymore. So everyone's been at £10, but I've really learned a lot and the feedback so far has been really good. So today I thought I would share with you some common application errors, and those are the ones that I found in personal statements, CVs, job applications, and MPharm Projects. Okay, so let's get straight to it. In personal statements, a few common errors are, firstly, writing general statements. So things like, I am passionate about becoming a good pharmacist. Okay, I mean, aren't we all, you know? That's such a general statement. Why are you passionate and how are you passionate? Like, whatever you say, you have to follow it up with something to back that you mean what you say. So for example, if you won a prize, what prize did you win? Not just, oh yeah, I was given a prize, but like what specific prize was that prize? If you read an article, what article was that article? And also think about the fact that if you go to interview, they will pick at everything. So don't write anything in your statement which you're not going to be able to expand on. So if you write something about an article, make sure you do know that article inside out, just in case they ask you about it. Another thing I want to say about personal statements is don't worry about word count until the end. So I would think it's much better for me, like working with someone, I find it much easier to bulk it out and like write as much as possible, and then for us to reduce it and condense it down, rather than if there's not much to say and you're just stretching it out, you know? Like write it out, write as much as you want to write, and then from there you can like cut what you think is unnecessary after that. Okay, so some common mistakes in CVs that I've seen are not making the first paragraph tailored to you. So if you're writing just like a general first paragraph that could be for anyone, then why would anyone wanting to employ you want to read further? How is that CV different to anyone else's CV? So I always say in that first paragraph that you write about like yourself, make sure that it's specific to you. Whatever stage you're at, you don't want that same person to be able to literally copy and paste your paragraph. Like when I write my CV first paragraph, I always make it very specific to me so that no one else could take it. And it's kind of interesting and it makes you want to know what this person's about. I don't actually know if they do this in England, but they do it in Korea, which is where I got this from. But I like to add a professional headshot to my CVs, and I'm not saying that that is necessary. People put a face to a name, so they're able to be like, oh yeah, this is what this person looks like. It kind of gives it more of like a real feel. So if you're handing out your CVs everywhere, like to all over like community pharmacies and stuff, and it's just a bit of writing, why would anyone want to read that, right? Whereas if they're like, oh yeah, okay, so this person, it makes it a little bit more relatable, I think. Another error that I find in CVs is not sticking to the same tense. So if you have written something like, was responsible for overseeing OTC sales, right? And in the next line, you're saying legally and clinically screened prescriptions. You're going from past tense to present tense. And I know that when you write it, you might just go with the flow and some things might seem better as present tense. But if you started off past tense, stick to it, you know? And if it's something that you've done, it is in the past tense, like because you actually did it. So that was your experience and you did screen. So when you're writing that, write legally and clinically screened prescriptions. Don't keep switching between tenses within your CV. And finally, do keep it to one page, because unfortunately, that's just the way CVs have been, you know? I'd say max 2 pages. Really, when it comes to CVs, not everyone will want to read a 4, 5, 6 page document. I think it's a good place to start. So that is generally how I'd start writing my CV. I would ignore all of the presentation and I would just bullet point everything I've done, and from that I would then cut down and then format it into like a 1-page CV document. So I'm not saying don't start off like that, but your end result shouldn't be like a 6-page document of everything you've done. Now, some common errors that I find in Band 6 applications. I've seen some people repeat the same information that they would in the work experience part as the supporting information part. So your work experience part is the bit where you're writing like what jobs you've had, when you had those jobs, and your brief, like a brief description of your roles and responsibilities. And then there's the supporting information, which is I think 1,500 words or characters or something like that. And that is like the essay part. So first of all, don't write the same thing in both. If you've written that you've done something in your like brief responsibilities and your work experience part, don't be copying and pasting that into the supporting information part. The supporting information part is a completely separate part of the application. So you can kind of think of it as your work experience part will be like every job you've had, how long you've had the job, and what you did. The supporting information should be an essay as to why you think you'd be suited to hospital pharmacy, why that hospital, and what you can bring to the table. If you're writing for a hospital application, which is what I'm talking about in this video, like right now, then talk about your hospital experience. So if the whole supporting information essay is about how you worked in a community pharmacy, that's not really going to sell you as a candidate to a hospital pharmacist, right? I don't care if you've had one day in hospital. The supporting information bit doesn't ask you how long you've worked in the hospital. So even if you did your pre-reg in community, definitely include some of your university placements or whatever you can write that's a little bit more hospital related in the supporting information. So what I'm trying to say is, if you are a community pre-reg pharmacist, right, surely you've had 1 or 2 days here or there from university in hospital. Then kind of try and bring that and stretch it out as much as possible, and do talk about it in your supporting information. Make sure that your supporting information is not all about community, because as soon as someone reads that in hospital, they're just going to think, well, this person's all they've had experiences in community, so like you don't really sound suited to the role. Another mistake that you might make is writing your supporting information essay in chronological order of kind of your background and experience. Again, that part is not asking you in which year you did what and in which year you moved where. It's asking you to write why you want to work in hospital and why that hospital, right? And how you suit that role. So you don't specifically have to start it and be like, oh yeah, my background is when I was working in this country, then I moved here, and then I passed the exam, whatever. What we did with one of my friends who I helped out was we just kind of reordered it. So she had like in chronological order when she moved to England and like when she passed the exam and like when she started working, and I was like, no. And towards the end there was so much stuff that she'd done in her current hospital, but that was all at the end. So I was like, we don't have to do this chronologically. What we can do is actually bring that to the front and sell your skill set. And so that's what we did. We just reordered it. We worked together in kind of making sure that at the start it's very clear that you're a really skilled candidate, so that the person reading the application does actually want to continue reading it. Some of you are writing nothing about trust values. I always say, and I've said this in my previous videos, start and end specific to the hospital. So when you're writing this essay, if you're starting it about the hospital and you're ending about the hospital, it kind of like a ribbon, it just closes the application up and reminds that person reading the application that you really want to work for that hospital. If you're not even tailoring your application to a hospital, then all it can see is that you've just copy and pasted information. So like we know that in the supporting information part, not every line is going to be specific to that hospital. I'd say keep the middle bit, you know, the same, but at least start and end the application with some mention of that hospital. And it can be a longer process, because if you're applying for lots of hospitals at the same time, then you're like, oh, I can't be bothered. But really, like that's the minimum you can do. Don't write in the supporting information as if you're just talking to a friend. So I've seen some of the applications just be like, yeah, I really want to work for your hospital because your program is good. And I always say never write like that. Like, they're not your friend. Like, you're not writing a letter to a friend. I always say things like XYZ NHS Foundation Trust is suited to newly qualified pharmacists like myself because of blah blah blah. And finally, if you want to vamp up your certifications part of the application, in the meantime, whilst there's a pandemic going on and lockdown and stuff, vamp up your CPPE. So CPPE have loads of training courses and online videos and tutorials and certifications that you can actually do for free. So if your certifications bit is looking a little bit empty, all you've got is like safeguarding and first aid, then do go on CPPE and get the certifications for clinical learning, because that will make your application stand out. If you've got like 1 or 2 certifications, that's just bare minimum. Whereas in this time, use this time wisely. The online certifications aren't going to take that long. You may as well learn something and then also benefit from it. So I would say if your application is looking a bit bare, go on CPPE, get your certifications, and to one of my like clients who pay for my service, I said, you told me you want a locum in community as well, and you're currently not working, you're just trying to get in hospital. So use this time to kill two birds with one stone. Get the certifications that you need to become a community locum pharmacist. And those certifications you can use for your hospital application, if that makes sense, which is what I did. Finally, I want to make some comments about your MPharm projects. I find that this has been the hardest for me because, you know, personal statements or the CVs or the job applications, they're quite short and sweet, whereas these MPharm projects have been long. But like I said, I've been keeping it the same price and I've been trying to just help as much as I can. But a few things that I want to say is, I don't know about other universities, but King's College London, to get good marks in KCL for your MPharm project, your MPharm project must be clear. Like, it must be able to be read by someone who's not in pharmacy. So if your project is really unclear and it's kind of going from one topic to the other, it doesn't look professional. It has to be same font size, same spacing, have like a good structure, a good flow, and that really is going to already get you more marks than if you're just submitting it where it's all unstructured, you know? Don't start sentences with like whereas and a comma after it. Read some articles in the pharmaceutical journal, for example. You're not going to see that in the journal, right? So don't use that kind of thing in your project. If your project was going to get published, would it be approved? That's how you need to kind of edit it, and that's how you need to read it, you know? Watch out for your figures and table titles. So I think a lot of people have been focusing so much on the actual bulk of the writing that when it comes to like really small details, you guys are missing out a lot. You're like missing out capital letters and like you're doing double spacing. All of this for me is just like easy stuff, which is why I charge only £10 to read it, because I can see it, you know, and I can see that that's something you can fix so easily. But you guys are really missing out on like the small details. If you work as a pharmacist, like we are and we have to be, all of the small details. So not just for your project, but for your actual job, really do focus and like look out for little things like a title for a table or a graph or the figure. Like that should be correct. So watch out for that. Another thing is some of your font sizes are different, or there's random capital letters, or the spelling is wrong. Obviously, someone like me or someone reading your project is there to help you with that. But if you don't have anyone to help you to do that, then really just go through it properly. Some of the sentences are too long, so some of it sounds like you're just dragging it out, and that leads to a lack of clarity. So I think that instead of trying to sound smart and like elongating your sentences out, just cut it. And I always say, make this 2 sentences. If it's 2 sentences, it's clearer, it's better to understand, and that will get you more marks than if you're like writing this really long sentence and you, by the end of the sentence, you've forgotten where the first part was about and stuff like that, right? So for your project, stop making rookie mistakes and think about clarity, and make sure that when you give your project to someone, they understand it and it's to the standard of what you'd read in a published journal, because if it's not to that standard, then you're not going to get a good grade for it. So finally, I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to launch this service. I didn't even think many people would actually contact me, but I'm glad with the progress that it's had so far. It really is a back and forth process. So my general way of doing it has been like, I kind of see what you send me, I do like a grammatical clear up, I add my comments, and then you send it back with the edited amendments. And then after that, I kind of try and read it again with fresh eyes, and then I do further amendments and then recommendations and then like reordering and stuff, and then I'll send it back. And then that is when you can tell me if you're happy with it or not, and that's the way it's been kind of going. I will not stop until both of us are happy with whatever you've written and whatever you're going to submit. I kind of really could just fix it and send it back, and that would be the end of that. But if I don't add the comments, then you're not seeing what I've done and how I've changed it and what things I've noticed. So that's kind of the procedure that I've been taking so far. I am aware, and everyone's been emailing me about my Dropbox, the whole King's College London Dropbox of all the notes that I've been sharing. There's been a few password issues. I'm working through it. Like, some people are weird. They want to keep the notes to themselves, so they've been changing the password and stuff. So I've been having problems. So I'm trying to think of ways that I can share the notes with you without someone coming along and trying to keep it for themselves. That is, if anyone's got any good ideas, then leave them in the comments below. But that is it so far. I hope that you are all staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in the next video.